Hi ladies, I'm Pidge.
And I'm Moen.
Welcome to the Night Shift Court podcast. We are two shift-working fantasy book lovers and love nothing more than leaving reality behind for a bookish adventure.
Join us as we go under the mountain to discuss our favourite fantasy fiction tales and the authors behind them.
Come with us to explore the stories, one shift at a time. Hi ladies.
Hi. Welcome back.
I thought you were going to say it in Greek.
Oh, yes. Γεια σας. Καλώς ήρθατε.
Amazing. Amazing.
Bonjour for those in France. So we're getting into chapter 16 of ACOWAR. Where we left off was that we had visited a very sad Elaine and she just wants to go home. And she doesn't realise how cool she's got it because I want to live in Valaris.
And be young and beautiful forever.
Well, you still love me when I'm not. So, Feyre tells Lucian that she needs to give Elaine time.
I mean, thanks, Captain Obvious.
No shit, Sherlock. She tells him that he can go and visit the city anytime he likes, but he's forbidden to take the sisters anywhere or go to their floor.
Or he will lock him in a room with Amren, which I love for two reasons, right? One is that Rhys wasn't there when Lucian first bowed
Yes.
to Amren. And so Rhys obviously knows that Lucian knows who the fuck she is. But also that that's the threat.
Yeah.
Again, it would be my dream to be locked in a room with this monster.
I think Amren would quite enjoy being locked in a room with Lucian.
Yeah. Yes.
She thinks he's handsome.
As we find out.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so Rhys, Cassian, Moore, Az and Feyre all go to visit Amren.
She would love that.
I can hear her eye rolling from here.
Yeah.
Amren tells Rhys that he should kill Bayron.
Yes.
You should explain this.
So she says to him, you should kill Bayron and his sons and set up the handsome one as High Lord of Autumn. Self-imposed exile or no.
Love.
So firstly, Amren thinks Lucian is handsome.
Bit hot.
Ooh. Which I actually think is a massive compliment coming from a whoever knows how old
She been around.
monster.
Yeah, she's seen it all.
Hasn't she?
And her immediate company is Rhys, Cass and Az. And
Yeah.
she thinks Lucian's hot.
That's right.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Our bestie tongue talker is back, the Book of Breathings.
Oh, yeah. Noisy as ever.
Yeah, and in such an Amren fashion, it's sitting on her nightstand with a jar of old blood on top of it.
Delicious.
Just like she used the blood ruby as the paperweight.
Yes.
I love that, it's funny, but also she's just so practical. She's
Yeah.
like, well,
Yeah.
where else am I going to put this blood jar?
Yeah, I know. It's her cup of tea or jug of water next to her bed.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So it does begin to speak. It says, hello, sweet-faced liar. Hello, princess with. And then Amren cuts it off by being like, shut up.
I wanted to know what it said.
Yeah. But also, we talked in a previous episode about the things that the book said to Feyre and what our thoughts were about that and what the cauldron also said to Feyre.
Yes.
And if you'll remember, the cauldron referred to Feyre as princess.
Yes.
And the
or
book
you perhaps think it might not be.
Yes. But the Book of Breathings is now saying this.
Yes.
And we don't know if it said this before Feyre has turned up.
Yes.
But it is in Feyre's presence mentioning the word princess. Mm-hmm. But it is also in the presence
Of Moore.
Of Moore.
Yeah.
So we still don't know to whom it's speaking with.
Yep. It doesn't say, hey, Feyre, what's up?
Yeah, sweet-faced liar.
Yeah. So they say if Highburn is really working with Valahan, Montessor and Rask, that they have little chance against it. So they're quite a formidable few cities. If they band together, then the courts are fucked.
Yeah.
In short. So they've tried to summon help from Draken and Miriam. Now, They went to their island of Cretia and found it completely ransacked, abandoned, in ruin.
Interesting.
So Reese says Miriam died in the last battle.
Yep.
But Draken knew of a sacred hidden island where an object of great power made by the cauldron that could resurrect her and make her immortal.
So we took her there.
So that's why they've gone there. But now they gone.
Yeah.
Who knows where?
Interestingly, this is quite a bit of information. So firstly, they're gone and there's no trace of where they went or what happened.
Yes.
The place just looks totally abandoned. So where are they, firstly?
Yes.
Secondly, there is an object other than the cauldron that are able to resurrect mortals.
Yes.
Fae, whoever.
It's giving Deathly Hallows.
It is. Yeah, I totally agree.
My theory on where they are, or not where they are as such, because they could be anywhere. It's moot where they are. But I feel like they've left there on purpose, knowing that Reese knew where they were. And I think they've got intel that they know Valaris is compromised,
Yeah,
or
okay.
that Reese is somehow compromised, so that information is actually going to come out. And they know Durian's probably out for blood, or someone is, Durian's descendant.
Yeah, yeah.
Who knows? But I think they've fucked shit up to leave
To
this
make
place.
it look like.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think they've gone off their own bat. I don't think anything bad's happened to them as such. That's my theory.
Well, the inner circle do say that they believe that. So we talked previously about what Durian's card was in all this. Why is he involved, essentially? And they believe that the King of Highburn has promised Durian to use the cauldron to find Miriam and Draken. Not necessarily Miriam, but the item. So they're still living in the place where this magical, terrible and great item is.
Yes.
So it would seem easily enough that if the cauldron made that item, that it would be able to find where that item is.
Yeah.
So it'd be very simple for Durian to follow the path of candy, right, and get to
Like calls to like.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So remembering that Durian already knows that Miriam isn't dead because
Yes.
he's tried to use the cauldron to resurrect her already and been unable to find her amongst the dead. So I agree with you. I think that they have made it deliberately look like the place has been ransacked, but it actually hasn't.
Yes.
But that they know that someone's coming for them.
Yeah.
And so they've left.
Yeah. So the plan now is that they need to convince the other territories not to join with Highburn, essentially, because they need to make Highburn as vulnerable as possible, but it's going to be hard. So Reese has gone to Highburn and he says that the people there are hungry for the change, but the king, because he's, the king and he only cares about his own plight, I guess, that he's basically let the people of Highburn fester and their resentment's grown. Moore says many High Fae believe humans are property and that many in Highburn long to have their slaves back. So they're keen for the wall to be done with so that they can take as many humans back to Highburn to have as slaves.
Well, their land was also cut.
Yeah.
So I guess they've lost their rights and their privileges that they believe are theirs, which are the humans, and they're motivated to return to the old ways.
Yeah. So Highburn's people are for the war and the wall coming down for that reason. They want to get back to their way of life. They also want Prythian to be made an example of for defending the treaty. So they've been working to plan information in the other territories, playing them off against each other. So they're hoping to basically light it up from the inside and let everyone take care of themselves in Prythian, and then being the last thing that they have to do before they get to the wall to
Their
achieve
own
their
internal war.
makes sense to me. It's actually brilliant warfare. They hope this keeps them too preoccupied protecting their own lands to be able to come and fight with Highburn. So, yeah, it's like I said, brilliant warfare.
More about Moore. They hypothesise that there is something wrong with the cauldron. If you remember, it was quite tired, Feyre found out, after changing Nesta and Elaine.
Exhausted, really.
Indeed. It's supposed to be powerful enough to bring down the wall without issue at all.
Yeah. So there's something wrong.
Yeah. So they know that the king is having to work with that, with a essentially broken cauldron, and he's having to exploit a loophole in the complex magic that makes up the wall by using the existing holes. And if you'll remember, those existing holes were made up by people of great power coming through them.
Yeah.
So he's using that magic to leverage to support the cauldron to bring down the wall. They know their best chance of stopping him of doing that in the first place is to be able to patch up those holes before they can use them to his advantage. Amren says that she's looking into a spell to patch up the holes, but they need to research it more. And Cassian's like, well, I'm at your disposal. And, you know, like bows to her. And she's like, I wasn't aware you could read.
Oh, I love their banter.
Amren is just like the bitchier female version of Reese,
Yeah.
isn't she?
And like with the smarts to back it up.
Yeah.
It's like the not being able to win an argument with your grandmother.
Yeah,
Because that's how
yes.
old she is. But
Yes.
she's also like sassy and young.
Yeah, she's got nothing else.
Nah. So on that, so we've got how many holes in the wall? Three. So 3 people of great power have gone through the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Who?
Yeah, exactly.
Any ideas? Like any like inklings?
So interestingly, there's 2 in the spring court and 1 off the coast, if you remember, in the air.
Yes.
So the spring court one, I believe it's the way that Tamlin went through and back with Feyre.
Okay.
Whether that hole was there or not, who knows? You'll remember Feyre then went back into the mortal lands and went back through a hole. Do you remember she searched? She had to follow the wall and kept like feeling it for like days until she found a hole. So she went through one, whether it be the same one or not. And then the last one is in the air, which makes me believe it is some sort of creature. High fae, lesser fae,
Illyrian.
that is able to fly.
Yeah.
So that's all I know about it, really.
Interesting. Okay.
Amren explains that Feyre may be able to fix the wall due to her blends of many different magic types, but states that her sisters would be more suitable as they were indeed made by the cauldron itself.
Yes.
Remembering that an item made by the cauldron can also do many wonderful things.
Yeah.
Feyre becomes defensive and says, you know, my sisters will play no part in this. I think she holds great sadness about the fact that she originally asked for their help and she blames herself for their current state. And so she says, you know, I asked them to help once and look what happened. I won't risk them again.
Don't get me wrong, because the story is that Elaine and Nesta were to be fae. But if they had just gone back to Valaris when Rhys offered them protection the first time, none of this would have happened.
I told you so.
It's not the story.
I feel like that's what Rhys really wants to say to them.
Yeah, probably.
Amren just snorts at Feyre and says, you sound just like Tamlin.
Well,
She is asking for it, isn't she?
she's really on one today.
Yeah. Moore becomes terrifyingly cranky about Amren's comment and tells her that if she ever says that sort of bullshit again, she'll throw her in the Cindra.
Love.
And she actually says to Amren, if you're cranky because you're hungry, then tell us. Amren is a little bit like me at work when I get hungry.
I think we can
And
all
everyone
relate.
takes forever to do their dinner order and to think about what they want and wait for other people to come in. Like,
Yes,
you
'cause
should
you're-
know before shift if you're ordering tea or not.
You are on afternoon shift thinking about dinner at 1500 and you are waiting for people that start at 18:30
Yeah.
to walk in the door and order.
I'm ready.
You are ready. I always have to pre-look at the menu just so that I don't make her angry, guys. And I get hangry too. I'm
Yeah,
Greek.
you do. Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yep. I won't lie about that. Amren tells Feyre to let the sisters out of the house. And she sort of looks at her directly and says, being cooped up never helped anyone. And I feel like it's almost Amren looking at Feyre and saying, you were cooped up in the spring court. You remember how awful that was and how being free saved you.
Recognise it.
Yeah. Like she's kind of saying, using what Feyre knows to tell her to get her sisters out of the House of Wind and do something with their life.
I think that's fair.
Rhys says, I'm not entirely sure that Valaris is prepared for Nesta Archeron.
True story.
And Feyre snaps at him. And I was honestly thinking, really? You're mad about that? Like, he's right.
He is right. And also, after all these years, I don't understand why Feyre is still defending Nesta.
Yeah.
Nesta's done nothing.
Feyre's very loyal.
Very loyal. To her discredit, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, Reese says he will send a message out to every High Lord to attend a meeting in 2 weeks' time, as they need to plan to get allies on their side. So this is like straight back to business. They've had their little, tiff and chat about the things that are going on within the court. But really, ultimately, they've all come together because they need to plan the war.
So Feyre gets dressed in sensible clothes for dinner that night. They're going up to the House of Wind. But she mentions that she slips on a pair of embroidered slippers that Cassie and think are ridiculous.
Well, they're not war ready, are they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I just love that he notices out of everything she's wearing. He's like, oh, embroidered slippers.
She does have to have a bit of girly downtime on the odd occasion. She can't be in Illyrian leathers all the time.
That's right. That's right. He flies her up to the House of Wind and she speaks to him about that day in Highburn. And she says to him that when Nesta was changed, that she felt something different about her. And Cassian responds that he hasn't seen any trace of it, but sometimes he can feel it, especially when her emotions are heightened, which he says happens often, usually because she's pissed at him.
Yeah.
But also the fact that he mentions that he can feel it is a really big deal.
Yeah, that is a telling sign. Yeah.
He says, I don't think Nesta will ever forgive me for what happened in Highburn to her, but mostly to Elaine. I made her a promise and when it mattered, I didn't keep it. And Feyre asks him why he bothers with Nesta. And he says, because I can't stay away. And if you'll remember, that's the same thing that Reese said to Feyre in the cabin about how he can't stay away from her and that he still can't.
What could this mean?
Yeah, I think it's really obvious, but let's not.
Yeah, let's not say it outright.
They land at the House of Wind and Feyre heads over to Lucien, who's obviously standing by himself. Nigel, no friends, literally. Everybody is dressed in whatever they want. I think Moore's wearing this beautiful gown. Cassian and Azriel are in there fighting leathers. Reese is in, a suit, I assume. Yeah. And Lucien looks over Feyre and he's like, what actually is the dress code? Because he's dressed in finery, the finery of the autumn court has come for tea. And he's feeling obviously way overdressed.
Does he have finery of the autumn court on?
Oh, well, a beautiful fine
I was going to say, how has he got finery of the autumn court?
That complements his hair colour.
Roger. So complimentary night court finery for Lucy.
Yes.
Roger.
Nesta arrived in a devastatingly beautiful gown.
Of course.
Moore either ignores or is ignorant and approaches Nesta and starts fingering the fabric. All over. And I can picture it, but I feel like it's not the right way to describe it.
Awkward.
But Moore is such a kind soul. She unquestionably accepts and tries to create relationships with those in her family's family.
Yeah.
As in, Moore doesn't, if you picture Moore and Nesta together, they probably don't have a lot to relate to at the moment, but Moore makes an effort. She approaches Nesta even though she knows she's a fucking bitch.
Yeah.
And touches her gown and compliments her gown and things like that to attempt to create a relationship with her, because remembering that Moore and Feyre are besties.
It's her sister's sister.
Yeah. And not just surface level besties, but her and Moore are together.
Ride or die.
Yeah.
Like you and me.
Exactly.
And Lauren.
And Lauren. Our best friend Lauren.
We love you, Lauren.
Lauren is our biggest and greatest supporter of the podcast. She goes for walks and she listens to our podcast every week and she always tells us if something's wrong.
Yeah, we love you, Lozzie.
And so she's not – I'm the Nesta.
You're the Nesta. Don't call me the Elaine.
No, you're not Elaine.
I could be the Elaine.
You're Feyre.
But Lauren's not Elaine also, but she does like to garden.
She's more.
Oh, copy.
Oh, she does like to garden.
She does.
Yeah, she is boring.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
She's a bit Elaine-esque with more traits.
Yeah.
And we love her.
She's the silent partner.
She's the silent partner of the night shift court.
So Feyre gives Reese all the credit for the beautiful clothes that he's given to her during her time in the night court. But Moore says, he never tells me where he finds them. He won't tell me where he found Feyre's dress for Starfall. And I just want to make a note of that because we do later find out about this gown. And so I just want to make a note that firstly, like, it's lovely that she gives him all of the credit, but also it is a bit weird that someone presents you with such a stunning gown that you don't ask who made it or where it's from. But you know what? When in the night court,
Do as they do.
do as they do.
Yeah.
Moore says to Nesta, it's a good thing we're not the same size or else I might be tempted to steal that dress. And Nesta looks Moore up and down, notices her scandalous outfit by human standards and says, fortunately for you, I don't return the sentiment.
She is such a bitch.
Which is basically her way of saying, you look fucking terrible.
You look like a sloot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nesta now takes a seat at the table, and this was a huge moment for me because my two favourite characters interact for the first time,
They're right there. They're
Aren't
talking
they?
to each other.
aren't they?
Oh.
So Nesta takes a seat and she's clearly not fearful of Amryn. And her first question that night to her is, why do your eyes glow? Amryn says, you know, none of these busybodies have ever asked me that. And she explains that they glow because it was the one part of the containment spell that they could not get right. One glimpse into what lurks beneath. What is the containment spell?
Well, this is the thing.
And who did it?
I don't know, but part of me wants to say that Reese has something to do with it.
Okay.
But also I'm like, nah, he's not. Is he old enough? Probably not. I feel like
He's not because
it's someone in the prison.
yeah. It's I love it when they use this sort of thing to describe it and it just thickens the plot for me.
It does.
Nesta pushes and she says, and what is beneath? And Amryn smirks and says, they never dared ask me that either. I see the Colonel girl. You did not fit the mould that they shoved you into, the path you were born upon and forced to walk. You tried and yet you did not, could not fit. And then the path changed. I know what it is like to be that way. I remember it long ago as it was. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Amryn essentially indicates that she too was born into a life/body that didn't fit and that her path changed.
Yeah. This is one of the things that I think we've spoken about in earlier episodes about Amryn's gender, that she chose to be a female form.
Yep.
But we don't actually know, which I think goes along nicely with those kind of ideas that maybe she was an it or a something.
Yeah.
Not a male or a female.
Yeah. Yep.
But what?
I can't wait to find out more about her. I really can't.
We have to know more. We do. Surely soon. Surely soon.
Come on,
Sarah. Fuck. Not forgetting, this is book 3
Yeah.
out of 5 published.
And it's only getting twistier, isn't it?
Twistier and twistier and
So they now go to sit down, everybody else apart from Nesta and Amryn, and they're all taking their seats and Lucian's like, there's only one seat left.
oh yes, by the way, Elaine not there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. She ain't there.
No. I was not surprised by that.
Yeah, no me either.
He goes to sit at the table and there's only one seat left, the head of the table. And he's so weird about it because he's like, Reese, shouldn't you sit here? And Reese is like, I don't give a shit where you sit. And then the description of Lucian sitting down is for all of the world looking like he was perching atop a pincushion.
It kind of is.
And I can just picture him being like, oh.
Awkward.
Yeah.
Lucian asks Feyre if she will go to the meeting with all of the High Lords. And she says yes. She's a damn high lady, bitch. He asks if she will hide her powers while she's there. And she says his father would join Highburn if she thought he stood a chance at getting his power back by killing Feyre. So it's kind of a warning.
Yeah.
But also no one's going to kill Feyre in a meeting of High Lords and ladies.
You wouldn't think so.
You'd have to be pretty game to be doing stuff like that, right? So Reese needs to have a meeting in the Court of Nightmares to talk to Moore's father, Keir. And he basically needs to suss whether or not he's going to be able to convince Kia and his aerial legion to.
They're called the Darkbringer Legion.
Yes. So he's going to ask them. He can't force them. Find backwards if they will fight alongside them in the war. He says they can say no if they want to, and they have to leave it at that. They have to respect it, that legion is there to protect the Court of Nightmares, the Hewn City.
Yeah, he describes that his ancestors, like High Lord ancestors, entered into agreement with the steward of the Court of Nightmares at the time, and they agreed that they would remain within the mountain, not challenge or disturb any other parts of the court, and in return they would function as their own court individually. So
Interesting.
his army, Kia's army, is the Darkbringer Legion, and he can decline and has declined Rhys twice before to use that army. Moore is adamantly against this plan.
Yeah. She doesn't want to involve Kia in anything, basically.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she tells Rhys not to waste his time. His father has refused, like I said, twice before, and she reminds him and she says, I'll remind you that the Darkbringer Legion was nearly as bad as the enemy when it came to their behaviour. So it paints a very descriptive picture of, you can imagine the Court of Nightmares is awful. We're talking the Court of Nightmares army.
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And I just love this bit where Moore, Rhys is like, well, this is what we're doing. And Moore's like, well, I suppose I have 2 days now to find a dress to horrify my father.
I love that. She's so sassy. Feyre reveals to Rhys that she wants to learn how to fly, as she has obviously these shape-shifting powers, so she can conjure up some wings anytime she likes. Azriel, the kind man that he is, offers to teach her, and he says that basically he also had to learn at a later stage in his life, so he knows how it is to teach an adult to fly.
So he didn't learn till he was 11.
Yeah.
He was kept in his father's dungeon for 11 years.
I just feel so sorry for him.
Yeah.
So Feyre turns and says to Nesta and tells her all about the wall and the holes and the fact that Nesta may be able to close them. Shock. Amren offers to show her how to do this, and Nesta says she wants the king and the human queens dead by the end of the war, and if they promise her they'll kill them all, then she will help them fix the wall.
Nice.
Nesta doesn't do anything for nothing.
Absolutely.
So she has this vendetta and she will have it play out the way she wants it before she does anything for anyone. Feyre asks Nesta to go to the High Lord meeting and tell them what was done to her, but Nesta refuses. She said she refuses to grovel to High Fae and tell them their story. Nesta says to Feyre, if they ask Elaine, she will rip their throats out. I get the fierceness, but there's power in sharing these particular things.
Yeah.
For the greater good, for the end goal, which Nesta also wants. I just don't understand why being selfish is her place that she sits in when she has things that could help everyone. So I just makes me want to punch her in the face.
I
know
think
you love her.
she's defensive of Elaine, but she's also defensive as a person.
Yeah.
She's just as defensive in protecting Elaine against others as she is with herself.
Yeah.
Like to not let anybody in. She, to me, the fact that she's admitted that she wants the kings and the queens dead shows that she is hurt by what has happened and wants revenge.
Yeah.
Rather than being like, oh, I don't even care about them. I don't care about you or Valaris or your people. I don't care what happens in your war. Piss off all of you. I actually think it's her way of saying yes, I will help you, but I will help you because these are the things that I want.
Yeah.
Because she believes that revenge will help her.
Yeah.
Even though I don't actually think getting revenge helps people in the long run, with their intrinsic self-care.
Yeah.
Nesta then makes a very dramatic exit and leaves the room. Moore thumps down a bottle of wine in front of Feyre and says it's fine if you drink directly from it.
Can we hang out more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after they finish the wine, Rhys and Feyre fly down and take a walk through Valaris. They speak about the High Lord's meeting, and Rhys enters into the conversation with Feyre by saying every court is invited. And What he's actually saying is the spring court is invited.
Tamerlane will be summoned.
Yeah. Feyre responds, I doubt he will come given that he is a Highburn's ally and knows we would kill him. Rhys explains that the meeting occurs with the binding spell where they actually cannot harm one another. Otherwise, the price would probably be their life.
Yeah.
Feyre realises at this moment that Rhys had also revealed his wings to Lucien, which we had spoke about last episode, and she asks if he trusts him. Rhys says, I trust in the fact that we currently have possession of the one thing he wants above all else, and as long as that remains, he'll try to stay on our good side. But if that changes, his talent was wasted in the spring court. There is a reason he had that fox mask, you know. And I actually thought, Rhys basically says, Lucien's going to do what we want because we have Elaine.
Yeah.
But if that changes and he is no longer on our good side, his talent was wasted in the spring court. So what is that talent that he's referring to?
There is some serious shit going down. But we don't know.
Yeah. Feyre questions if Rhys ever gets tired of playing the games between courts and people.
There's always something going on, isn't there?
Yeah. And he replies that he does when the stakes get so high like they are at the moment. But he says, we will keep planning for our future. War or no war, I will keep planning for our future, which is basically a really sweet moment between them where they both commit to continuing to live even though the odds are against them. And Feyre reassures Rhys that he doesn't need to fight alone anymore.
I think that's the stark contrast between Nesta and Feyre is that Feyre and Rhys are so for the people.
Yeah.
Like the typical king and queen, for the people. And then Nesta's for myself.
Yeah. And I don't blame her. So the next morning, Rhys flies Feyre to the sparring rings that are on top of the House of Wind. Cassian makes a comment about Feyre not exerting too much of her energy already this morning, which I love. And she says, 2 Illyrian males making me sweat in one morning. What's a female to do?
What a perler.
I love their relationship. It's very cheeky, isn't it? Like the embroidered slippers.
Love it.
Know?
I want a Cassian.
Yeah, I want an Azriel.
I have an Azriel.
We're going to talk about that later. Nothing is off limits. Feyre picks up pretty quickly that Cassian is upset at her and she begins her warm-ups and he begins to talk. Cassian explains that he's been with Rhys for over 500 years and that he still does and will sacrifice himself for others. He says that Rhys will never let anyone else offer up anything and that neither will Feyre and that they're so similar in that way. He goes on to speak about how when Rhys had gone off to Amarantha's party, do you remember Rhys had said that he told all the others that he didn't want them to come with him and that was why there was no one there to sniff his drink, so he went alone. Cassian says that his head went quiet and that the same thing happened when Feyre went off alone to the spring court and he basically has had flashbacks around how Rhys was then trapped for 49 years away from his family because you remember they were all existing in Valaris during this time pretending life went on, you know.
Well, everyone's life went on, really, because it was such a secret.
That's right.
You couldn't do anything or you'd give it away.
Yeah, and I think that's really sweet because it's not as if Rhys is always in Cassian's head talking to him. It's just that there's a connection between them that's always open that Cassian must acknowledge in his mind.
Yeah.
And he is holding that same connection open for Feyre because he knows that she is also Daimarti.
Yeah. And she's an extension of Rhys.
Yeah. And I mean, as far as we're aware, she's never spoken directly to Cassian in his mind.
Yeah.
But for him, it's the same thing. You know, she disappeared.
I have here that he's angry at her that she gave herself up for them and that she, again, didn't see herself as essential. And she argues with him that she isn't essential, that the rest of the inner circle have a duty and are vital, but she isn't. And he says they were all terrified for her the whole time she was in the spring court. So again, she wears that chip on her shoulder of being not worthy.
Yeah,
Still. And I can't fathom it. It's like, when are you going to accept that you are as important as any other part of that puzzle?
She's never had that,
Yeah.
remembering, like, even in their human life.
No.
Nesta and Elaine were taught manners,
Yeah.
language, writing,
And she was
reading
not.
by their mother, and she
Yeah.
was not. Then their mother died.
Did
and-
she?
Well,
Did she though?
Then her mother left.
Her mother went away.
And then it was all on Feyre to do everything on her own.
Yeah.
So I don't think she's ever had other people to rely on, and she's still getting used to that fact.
Yeah.
Their conversation is actually interrupted by Nesta arriving to meet Amren. And Cassian again puts on his mask of like cheeky, humorous, and he goads her to join them. And he asks, are you scared? And Nesta says to him, why should I be scared of an oversized bat who likes to throw temper tantrums? And I don't think in Cassian's years of 500 years of being alive that he's ever been described as an oversized bat that has temper tantrums.
But it's the best call ever.
Yeah.
I want to be as quick-witted as Nesta.
Feyre begs Rhys down the bond to come and save her because she's like, I am not getting in the middle of these two.
Yeah.
He says, I've sent another pretty face for you to admire, not as beautiful as mine, of course, but a close second.
Oh, as.
Azriel appears and he says, I need to start our lesson early. And everyone knows it's a lie.
He's like, what can I say?
Yeah.
This will do.
Awkward, the attention's on me and
Yeah.
I've got to say something.
Yeah.
So she heads over in his direction, and we have discussed Rhys's scent before.
Yes.
As
Delicious. I can't remember the words.
citrus and salt.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in contrast, Azriel's scent is described as night chilled mist and cedar.
Delicious.
So which one do you like more?
I'm definitely gravitating more towards cedar
Than salt.
than salt.
Cedar or salt. Okay.
Yeah. That's my vibe in general in fragrance world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. You like trees.
I do.
Righto.
Yes.
Okay. Noted. Feyre says to Cassian, good luck, right before Azriel shoots them off into the sky.
Love it.
And Cassian yells a filthy curse at them
Of course
on their
he
way
does.
up.
Yeah.
So I have a favourite quote, which is actually the last sentence of this part. And she says, Cassian was the general of the Night Court. Surely Nesta wasn't anything he couldn't handle.
Little does he know.
That's right. Azriel and Feyre land at a lake where they've come to do her first flying lesson. Feyre acts like really awkwardly and tries to like stall having to summon her wings. And so she's like, and Azriel's like, in order to fly, you'll need wings. And he's quite amused and sees how uncomfortable it is for her. So he says to her, do you need me to turn around? And this is actually really sweet because apart from like him flying her to the mortal realm last book, they haven't really had a lot of scenes alone together to develop their relationship. And Azriel's the harder one to get to know. You would remember that she described him as the one to watch out for.
Yeah.
So she stalls even more and starts like asking him about Lucian and their meeting and when Azriel's going to fly off to gather some more information. But she eventually summons not only her wings but also her courage. And she gets her wingies. Azriel provides some feedback on how to change them. So
Because she can make them whatever she likes.
that's right, yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
fancy.
When she's finished, he says, I know you're not Illyrian, but amongst their kind, it is considered inappropriate to touch someone's wings without permission, especially females. And if you remember, Feyre has like touched Rhys's wings many times before they were mates, and he never said anything about it.
Yes.
But you would remember now that it's kind of like going up and pinching someone on the bum.
I think it's a bit worse.
Do you? Like,
Yeah.
what is it, a boob grab? Or
I think it's
what is
like,
it? Oh, it's one of those, is it?
I think so. Like the way that they talk about how sensitive they are.
Okay, yeah, right.
I feel like it's a bit more than just like a bum pinch or a boob grab.
It's a caress.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
I feel like it is.
Okay.
If you have wings, let us know.
Which also leads to a very awkward situation in which Azriel starts touching Feyre's wings to like feel if they're the right tendons and
Anyway,
ligaments.
Feyre understands that it's going to be quite hard and it's very painful.
Sorry, I just want to make a note before I've got to say this. I've got to say something serious.
Oh.
Just noting with that quote, he says, but amongst their kind, not his kind, their kind.
Yeah, concerning. I think, perhaps that's just he is scarred from his upbringing.
Yeah.
He feels like dissociated from like Illyrians in general because his father was such a cunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That too.
So as is schooling Feyre about the most important thing to do, and that is to not have your wings on the ground. Funnily enough,
I'm not sure she's going to be ready for war.
no. It does prove to be very difficult, very painful, and she realises that she needs to do a lot of strengthening the muscles that hold the wings up.
I can relate that anytime I lift something and then I'm sore the next day, I'm like, you need to work out more.
And then you subsequently don't.
No.
Same.
Which is ironic considering we're recording in the pain cave right now.
Yes, if you don't know, welcome to the Pain Cave. This is the pseudo gym / podcast studio.
Yeah.
We would, if we wanted you to hear us huffing, we could treadmill and bike whilst podcasting, but we wouldn't subject you to that.
Absolutely
Or
not.
ourselves. Feyre talks to Rhys about libraries and tells her that the Fae burnt some rather than let humans gain access to them. It's pretty extreme measures, isn't it? It's like, well, we don't want the humans to read.
Yeah.
Let's light this up.
Let's make the Calanmai of the war.
And I've just, I've got the like the cigarette.
Yes, yeah.
Throwing the cigarette into the library.
Yeah. It's so selfish, isn't it? And it's very consistent with Highburn and what they are now doing to support the treaty, that they want their slaves back.
Yeah.
So they were the same. They were like, regardless of whether we continue to exist or not, we don't want you to have this information.
Yes.
So we'll rather just get rid of it.
Yeah, so they were phobic that the humans would find spells to use against the Fae. But, it's not just about spells. Surely you have to be Fae. You surely have to be magic.
So I think that there are some humans that have magic because they're very, very far descendants of Fae.
Okay, that makes a bit of sense.
Potentially, yeah, all the children that resulted in after the war.
Yeah. So some half Fae and some half human children existed when the wall went up, and they weren't treated well on the other side of the wall. Some were even killed. Some stayed in Prythian, and they were deemed lower than lesser fairies, and many had to find work by selling themselves. So lesser fairies in general, like the bog and the water wraiths and the things, they're pretty low down on the food chain, bringing Tamlin the tithe and such. Can you imagine being a halfer and being less than a lesser?
Yeah.
Be pretty bad. No wonder they're prostituting themselves. So Rhys takes her to the night shift court.
The night shift court library is inside.
It is inside. Rhys takes her to the library in the night court and she meets Clotho. So Clotho is a really endearing character, I must say. I feel the same sense of protectiveness over Clotho as Rhys describes. It's a really odd thing to do, but I don't know. It's like a friend of yours that's been mistreated by a man. You kind of feel that protectiveness over them. This is the same vibe I get. So Clotho is a priestess and Feyre realises she can't or won't speak. The library has a huge gaping hole at the bottom of it, and there's levels and levels and levels of books. Now, Feyre asks what's at the bottom, naturally.
Yeah.
She does the Nesta question, what's at the bottom? And Rhys says that he once dared Cassian to fly to the bottom to have a look. He came back up absolutely terrified, and he still never told Rhys what he saw. And even as the book goes on, if you mention the bottom of the library, Cassian just goes white as a sheet. We come to know what is at the bottom.
I feel like with Clotho, you're her empathetic best friend and I'm whatever's at the bottom of the library.
Okay.
Yeah.
What you're telling me is that you're a bitch.
I will defend you. If I like you, I will defend you.
I'm a bad job.
A bit like that. So Reese says that the priestesses here are special and they're unique. And Feyre notes that she didn't realise that they left their temple because remembering Clotho wears the same priestess uniform as Ianthe does. And Reese says a library is a temple of sorts.
Amen.
Exactly. Amen. They follow Clotho down the incline that circles around the levels, and Feyre wonders if any of the priestesses had ever gone sledding down it before. Reese speaks into her mind and says, "Not that I know of, but Maura and I once tried when we were children. Our mother caught us on the 3rd level." And he explains that they'd actually oiled oiled it up. And if you've ever seen a picture of it, it's round and round, going down. So you would not stop and you would get some serious speed.
You would.
But apparently the priestesses were all slipping, falling on their faces when they tried to walk out on there.
Oh,
So
I love that.
They got in super trouble. They come to a reading area that's been set up for them. So it's super cozy, tea, chairs, etc.
Dream.
Right.
Oh. Clotho takes them to a table where she has laid out books that they might find useful. Feyre notices her hands are bent and twisted. Reese explains that Clotho was attacked a long time ago by a group of males who cut out her tongue and smashed up her hands. Reese looked into her mind to see who had actually done that to her and then, in true Reese fashion, sets more onto the blokes who did it.
Love that.
I love that too. He's like, well, I don't need to do that. I have my weapon.
Yeah. I love that they thought they were being super tricky, that she couldn't write their name or speak their names. And Moore is actually the one that found her and brought her to Reese, knowing that he would be able to see what happened.
In her mind, yeah.
And so they would have left that attack thinking that they're the cleverest fae that there are, right?
They got scot-free away with it, but no.
And then the Morrigan shows up.
With her wrath. So he says all the priestesses in the library have stories like Clotho and that the library is a refuge for them. Then Reese tries to come on to Feyre and sleep with her in the library, but they agree to do what they came here to do and try and find some more information on the wall.
They talk about the miracle of Feyre being able to read the text that they've come here for today. And she says, yes, Reese is the greatest lover a female could hope for, is undoubtedly how I learnt to read.
She ain't wrong.
That's right. Reese suddenly winnows to the 2nd level and they speak mind to mind about how he will never get any work done with her wearing all that tight leather.
Ooh.
She asks how he's able to winnow within the house and he says the library makes its own rules apparently, because if you'll remember last book he said that you cannot winnow into the House of Wind, but you can winnow within it.
Ooh.
Obviously. Feyre gives him a vulgar gesture and he says, I saw that, even though his back is to her.
I love them. So one piece of information they do find is that the wall was never made to last. Feyre asks Reese if he could win a fight against the king, and he said he doesn't know the extent of the king's powers, which, given that Reese is the most powerful High Lord, he has some self-doubt here if he's willing to not go, yeah.
The king has done a great job. Because do you remember he was described as very mundane?
Very mediocre.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so we originally thought he was human based on how mundane he was.
I still think of him as human.
Yeah, me too.
But he's not.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we've talked about how becoming fae makes you taller, prettier, all your features are exaggerated.
Yeah.
And they still describe him as very mediocre.
Just plain.
So
plain Jane.
It's very interesting. He keeps the persona of being very mediocre as well.
Yeah.
And we don't know anything about his powers yet.
Yeah.
Or anything really about him.
Yeah. So Feyre says that Highburn may have the numbers, but that they can get the monsters. She wants to get the bone carver on their side. And she says they can find out what he'd be willing to do to go back home.
That's it for this episode of the Night Shift Court podcast. Join us again next week where we will begin the adventure of Akatar's Book 3, A Court of Wings and Ruin.
Whichever platform you're listening on, we would so appreciate a 5-star review. You can follow us at The Night Shift Court on Facebook, Instagram and TikTok.
I hope the night is kind.